put them directly into Tippecanoe Press. At this time, it's not believed there was any fire damage to the well-known Shelbyville business as Tippecanoe Press. A firewall between the apartment complex owned by Ernie Wallin and Tippecanoe Press itself kept the flames from spreading to that business. Although there was intense smoke damage throughout Tippecanoe, that's believed the only building that received some type of damage. The upstairs of Tippecanoe, part of the old Alhambra, still contained a lot of smoke about 4 hours after the fire. At one point, when firemen thought they had it under control, flames would break out in another area, as many complex caves throughout the second floor of that apartment area. Fire just kept spreading. They couldn't use all the lines at once because of the water pressure difficulty at times. There's so much intense pressure used by a snorkel and a deluge gun they tried to set up on the south side of the building on West Hendrick Street that it drains the other lines. Firemen were able to finally get enough water into the flames, but not after shooting it for quite a while. Fire Captain Paul Lay, shown here, did sustain some eye damage from hot embers blowing into his eyes, as well as Mike Mummert, another Shelbyville fireman. Both were taken to a community hospital at Indianapolis for treatment and then released. They returned to the fire scene and went back to work. Firemen kept pouring the water on the flames, but still yet trying to put the flames out and keep the water from spreading. They even used ladders to climb on top of an apartment building directly west of the apartment complex and shoot water in from the top side. Flames lapping out into the air in the pre-dawn fire next to Tippecanoe Press on South Harrison Street. Dollar loss not available yet, but cause of fire, according to Mike Tingle, who is apartment manager. He was not there at the time. Believed to be a kerosene heater in one of the apartments on the second story. All did escape unharmed. There were unconfirmed reports at times of the safety of those inside the building. Everything turned out all right. A lot of the hot embers blowing through the air, landing on top of the snorkel unit. All of the fire trucks themselves covered with large amounts of ice, plus the firemen that hampered them at times. The winds did not let up at any time. Streets completely ice-covered, hoses ice-covered as well. Waldron and Fairland volunteer firemen were called in to stand by at the stations to help with hoses and also to provide relief. By mid-morning, when the flames were becoming under control, firemen were becoming very, very weary. Ice had formed on all of the valves and control units of the trucks. And by 11:30, Waldron volunteer firemen were notified again to send what manpower they could, as the Shelbyville firemen were starting to wear down from the large turnout gear, the boots covered with ice and breathing all the smoke. South Harrison Street at Harrison and Broadway remaining blocked almost all day. Flames were visible for an hour and a half at least after the first alarm came in around 7:15 a.m. The Shelbyville Firemen Ladies Auxiliary assisted with plenty of manpower for hot coffee, also a quantity of that donated by Hardy's Restaurant of Shelbyville. Firemen were fearful about 10:45 a.m. of the water getting behind the large concrete-type decorative panels on the front of Tippecanoe Press, and they might fall off. Also were concerned about some of the walls around the apartment complex owned by Wallin, if they would start to fall. Firemen almost frozen in position as they were sitting on the ground with the 2.5-inch hoses, manning those. All they could do was just pour large amounts of water into the area. Dollar loss has not been determined at this time. It'll be a while before that is available, but the entire apartment complex, second floor, first floor, and basement entirely destroyed by the flames, believed to have originated from an apartment area from a kerosene heater. That was the report from Mike Tingle, who is the manager of the apartment complex. The two Shelbyville firemen, once again, Paul Lay and Mike Mummert, taken to community hospital for treatment of the eye injury, hot embers blowing in their eyes. They were brought back to Shelbyville. Other firemen complaining of some very cold hands and some breathing difficulty escaped from the cold into the senior citizens van that was used to stand by. City officials were at the scene also, running emergency vehicles back and forth to fire station number 3 so extra tanks of air could be obtained. Officials from Tippecanoe Press were highly praising of Shelbyville firemen because they were able to contain the fire and keep it from spreading to their building. Firemen were glad there was a large firewall used. While firemen were still pouring water on the blaze, business owners up the street from the Tippecanoe Press area and around the corner onto Broadway could be seen evacuating, taking their valuable merchandise out until the all clear sign did sound. The scene about 3 hours later at the apartment complex on South Harrison Street in Shelbyville was just a little different, but still a very frozen one. Firemen were concerned at that point about heavy smoke still filling in the second floor of the Tippecanoe Press of the old Alhambra area. They considered bringing in a large crane so some debris could be pulled out of the way they could get to that wall area. But within a few minutes then it started to subside, and the exhaust fans were able to be used to successfully remove the smoke. They were getting a little bit more water poured inside. Firemen had to keep hoses running, deluge guns, and anything that was being used so it wouldn't freeze up. Many of the hoses frozen solid into the water that had accumulated on South Harrison Street in Shelbyville. Again, the exact cause and origin not known yet, believed to have been, though, a kerosene heater on the second floor. Dollar loss not determined yet. Firemen concerned about walls possibly falling, they were keeping a close eye on those. Again, Fire Captain Paul Lay, Lieutenant Mike Mummert, treated for an eye injury from hot embers at Community Hospital, then released. Fireman John Colston, Kurt Lockridge, Richard Sebastian, Kenneth Suter, all treated for exposure or a type of frostbite. City employee James Adkins had some smoke inhalation. He was assisting at the scene. There was understandable concern for the 8 people believed to have been living at the time in the apartment area, but all seemed to have escaped unharmed. They were doing a check throughout the city area in Shelbyville on Monday afternoon. Fire and origin, cause not determined yet, nor is dollar loss. Authorities are investigating. Nothing believed to be suspicious at this time. Jack Boyce reporting, WSVL News.